all from Qatar. And Qatar then acts as the peace broker. So Qatar then, if there is no terrorism, if there is no jihadist groups, if there is no Al-Qaeda, if there is no ISIS, if there is no Hamas, Qatar don't really have a role. But Qatar's role has come as the peacemaker. We can do deals with Hamas and Israel. We can get you back the hostages. They have a real influential role. Of course they do. They're the ones who are funding it all. They're the ones who are behind it all. They're the ones who support it all. They're the ones who give home and give refuge to all of these jihadists and all of these terrorists. They have the same ideology as them. They support them. And they have trillions of dollars to fund it all.
Oh, funding. You mentioned funding. Are you funded by the Jews?
I'm not funded by the Jews.
Why do people keep saying that? I mean, I know you're not funded by the Jews.
Well, they say it because...
I'm now being accused of being funded by the Jews because I went to Israel. It's like, if you can get that wrong, what else have you got wrong? No one's paying me nothing.
Well, I had this with a woman because Sir Bob Shillman was a gentleman who I'd never met at that time, and he'd Rebel Media. He gave donations to Rebel Media. In 2015, I worked for Rebel Media for 1 year. So because of that, people say I'm Zionist funded and I was funded by the Jews because I worked for Rebel Media. And they continually tap me with that. But for the record, I don't give a shit because my stance has never changed. Some people's stances have changed. Since my start of my activism in 2009, I was pro-Israeli because I understand that Israel is the only democracy surrounded by totalitarian, Sharia-driven shitholes. You have to look at the population of Israel and the size of Israel and understand what surrounds it. 100 million, 60 million, 80 million, all these Muslim nations who wish to obliterate it. So I've been to Israel. I've been twice now. I think it's a beautiful country. Doesn't mean there's not problems. Do you know, when you're against a country, say, for example, when Joe Biden was in control of America, I hated him and his government and the decisions they were making. Didn't mean I hated every American. And it didn't mean every American supported what Joe Biden was doing and his government were doing. But with Israel, that same thing, it's the Jews. People say it's the Jews. And what I realised when I went there recently, and what I've grown to realise is, no, there's many Jews. There's a big divide within the Jewish community. There are many liberal Jews who are supporting a lot of the actions which are causing the destruction of many of our host nations, but there's many Jews who are opposed to it. And I don't think, and I can only explain it like I done it when I looked at Hollywood, because everyone said the Jews control Hollywood and they're the problem basically. So I looked at Hollywood and I looked at the funding that comes out of the Hollywood. 98% of the funding goes to Democrat causes and all these woke causes. Well, only 50% of Hollywood's Jews, which means 48% that are non-Jew are funding exactly the same causes. So are they doing it because they're Jews? Or are they doing it because of their ideology, because of their politics? Well, the other 48% are doing it as well. Yeah, the lefties within Hollywood, they're funding all the same woke LGBTQ plus Marxist bullshit. They're doing exactly the same. So no one's saying that's because of their religion. They're just saying it's because of their ideologies. But the accusation against me, yeah, I don't hate Israel. In fact, it would be easy to hate Israel. It would be easy to remain silent on this issue as well. But it would have been easy to remain silent on the whole Islam issue, on the whole grooming issue. I believe with a test of time, I'll be proven right. In fact, I already see that. The people who are vocally in America, there's many on the right now who are attacking Israel, and they're saying that Muslims and Christians need to stand together because the Jews are trying to cause this divide. So everything they say I'm saying, I'm paid to say to cause a divide. There's 40,000 British Muslims on the terror watch list. I didn't put them on the watch list. It's nothing to do with me. Yeah, we've probably had 20-odd jihad attacks in our country. Yeah, they weren't me either. We've had 90% of the convictions for rape in our country of groups of men are Muslim men. I didn't do that, guys. But somehow they say that because I talk about it, I'm paid to cause a divide. Oh, the fucking divide is there because Muslims are raping, pillaging and murdering their way through our country. And they're doing it across the whole West. They're doing it every country. They're causing mayhem. But you've got lots of Americans now who have not experienced this. They're gonna. So any of the videos they're making, they're not going to age well for them. The sellouts, like I saw Tucker Carlson now, he's in Qatar at the minute, I think. But I see all these people, well, we're friends. No, you're not. You don't get it. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're in the United States of America. You haven't been plagued by Islamic rape gangs. Your towns have not been taken over. Some of them now have. You're going to experience everything we're talking about. You're seeing Muslims come out on the street speaking very vocally, but you're going to witness it. And everyone's going to witness it. And all those videos of you saying, like Nick Fluente's, Muslims and Christians need to stand together. You go tell that to I said this, go tell that to Christians in Pakistan, bruv. Go and speak to the Christians in Afghanistan. See how they are. Go speak to the Christians in Nigeria. Go speak to the Christians anywhere where they're a minority to Muslims and tell them that they're friends with the Muslims. And then they'll tell you straight, no, they hate us. They're killing us, they're raping us. And this has been going on for 1,400 years. So people say it's all Israel. I think, well, the State of Israel was formed in 1948. Jihad's been going on for 1,400 years. Muslims have been trying to take over Europe for 1,400 years. They've been waging jihad, holy war, rape and murder way before Israel. Yeah, I don't know. But then you have to question, again, Qatar have their hands in everywhere.
The thing is, for me, the more I learn, the more I realise how little I knew. So I'm not wiping, for me personally, I don't wipe anything off the table. I wouldn't die on my sword and say Israel weren't responsible for October the 7th. After looking into it and being over there asking questions, it sort of kind of doesn't make sense because they didn't finish the job off. I mean, they've done quite the job.
You know what doesn't make sense? Here's the thing for all the ethno-nationalists that are saying Israel's behind everything. They say that Israel wants to break down our societies. This is what they say. Israel is responsible for flooding our countries with all these migrants to destroy the white race. This is their accusation. And to create them into Muslim states. So let's say that was true for a second. Why would Israel want the most powerful countries in Europe to be Muslim? Because Israel certainly, they might be winning the war at the minute, but if Britain becomes a Muslim nation, Germany becomes a Muslim nation, the whole of Europe becomes a Muslim, Israel ain't going to win the war anymore because all those countries are going to wage war on Israel. So it just doesn't make sense. Lots of it doesn't make sense.
And that's the problem. Prove me right or prove me wrong. Anyone I've ever spoke to, now, you know me well enough. Whatever I do, right or wrong, I'll fucking own it. So anyone that's ever said to me, is Tommy paid by the Jews? Did Israel fund Tommy? I've said no. I said, but what I can guarantee is I've known him long enough to know that if he was funded by the Jews, he would tell you.
Yeah, give me your money, lads.
I mean, you would, wouldn't you?
The mad thing is, I'm currently nearly £300,000 in debt. So there's this massive hysteria online, and I read the comments. You don't have any idea how much money he's now making. I'm about to go bankrupt again, you dickheads, because I've been hit with court fees and fucking all sorts of charges for the previous stuff. I was previously made bankrupt in 2021. In that bankruptcy, Hope Not Hate took over the investigation. They spent £200,000. But in that bankruptcy, they investigated every single penny that come to me. Every penny. There was nothing about the Jews, nothing at all. I've had the big investigation. They've gone back from a whole life. Now we're back to 2025 and we're 26, verging on. So, and I face the same again. I haven't got £300,000 to pay any of these fees. How can I pay them?
What about when you was in Israel? You interviewed an imam, and I mean, it looked like a very successful interview. You stopped him in the street. He engaged. He also took the selfie of you and him together. So that looked like a very amicable conversation. And he said that he admires some of the things you do and some of the things he doesn't agree with you on. So it's like, surely that's what it's all about, having some kind of dialogue. What kind of backlash did he receive just for talking to you and being civil?
He lost everything, didn't he? And I feel bad for him. He got kicked out of the mosque. He faced attacks. Yeah. I knew, though, if I'm honest, the minute he started talking to me and some of the things he said, I thought, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, mate.
Do you remember what it was he said that made you think?
Yeah, he said the Jews have a right to be in Israel. No, we can't say that because that's going to go against everything that all the Muslim groups want. So you can't say that. He said he admired lots of the things I've done. You can't say that. You might think it, and I have many Muslims say it to me. I agree with you on so much, Tommy. But publicly saying it, when you're an imam, it was brave of him. And do you know what? He was Indian. So there's Indian Muslims, Deobandis. No, they're very conservative, but less of a problem, the Pakistanis. But yeah, he's lost everything, I think. And it was a very nice chat. And lots of the comments supported from our supporters or from the general British public agreed with him and thought he was a nice man, non-Muslims.
Yeah, so much for Christians and Muslims coming together, because if they try and lean this way, they get backlash from their own.
But these people who are making these comments have no idea. That's what I think. You've got no idea what it's like in Luton, in Bradford, in Birmingham, in London as non-Muslims. You've got no idea. So you're talking from a place of privilege and comfort, sitting in your little non-Muslim area, telling us we all need to be friends with the Muslims whilst we're getting raped and pillaged and our kids are being terrorised by them. So you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. And the only reason why you're saying this is because you hate the Jews. That's basically it.
You mentioned Qatar, and I'm reading more and more now, or certainly hearing more and more about the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, for your everyday man, you would have heard of ISIS, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, like the big hitting terrorist names. But the Muslim Brotherhood, I'd never really heard of that until recently. So what does the ordinary person need to know about the Muslim Brotherhood?
That the Muslim Brotherhood are behind all those groups that you just named.
Why am I only hearing about them now, though? Why not 10 years ago?
They're a very clever organisation. They've been going for 100 years. They're very well funded from Qatar. It's all from Qatar. And Qatar then acts as the peace broker. So Qatar then, if there is no terrorism, if there is no jihadist groups, if there is no Al-Qaeda, if there is no ISIS, if there is no Hamas, Qatar don't really have a role. But Qatar's role has come as the peacemaker. We can do deals with Hamas and Israel. We can get you back the hostages. They have a real influential role. Of course they do. They're the ones who are funding it all. They're the ones who are behind it all. They're the ones who are supporting it all. They're the ones who give home and give refuge to all of these jihadists and all of these terrorists. They have the same ideology as them. They support them. And they have trillions of dollars to fund it all. Well, Qatar have spent, I've had an issue with Qatar for years because I looked, do you remember I got invited onto Al Jazeera. Now, Al Jazeera are a very professional propaganda unit for Qatar, one of the best news networks in the world. You have to realise that 90% of what they do is legitimate and the other 10% isn't, but then they're seen as legitimate.
Would you compare that to Britain's BBC?
Oh, they are far worse, man.
Really?
They are a terror unit cell, in my eyes, Al Jazeera, to push the propaganda. The only access that TV network that had access to bin Laden the whole time during the conflict over there was that he could sit down with and that would get his videos was Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera have been pushing the agenda and the voice of Islamist ideology since they were formed. But they mix it with some very fair, real good news. So they're good. They're dangerous and they're good. And so Russia Today's banned, isn't they? Because they're seen as a propaganda wing for,
for RT.
Russia. RT's banned in the UK. But is Al Jazeera banned? I don't think it is. So, but Al Jazeera it is Qatar. It's a voice piece for Qatar. It's a very professionally done news network. And I was invited into Al Jazeera. It was where the bloke tried to sting me and he tried to read verses from the old Bible and pretend it was the Quran. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So it's him. But as I went in there, there'd just been terrorist attacks in France. Now, as I started going down the rabbit hole on France to see what was going on in France, I found that all the money was coming from Qatar. All the money that was funding the division, funding the extremist ideologies, funding all of it, the breakdown in France, it was all coming from Qatar. They were funding it all. So that every problem that's coming out of France really has come from Qatar. When I started looking at it all. Yeah? So I go into this unit, I go into this office, and they've got so much security. I had to go through a airport-style security to get in. Yeah, taking everything off, shoes, belts, going through all the machines. So when I got up there to be interviewed, in my head I'm thinking, you cheeky wankers, you've got all this to protect yourselves, but you are funding the destruction and the terrorism that we're all having on our streets. And I had that confrontation with him. I said, you're funding it all. Because the more I looked into Qatar, and anyone needs to go down this rabbit hole on Qatar, Qatar should not have any buildings in our capital city. They own more than Prince Charles. They own everything. They own Barclays. They own ports in our countries. They own Harrods. They own everything. I'm going to put together a little documentary on Qatar because I think the public needs to be aware of who they are. I always used to be against Saudi Arabia pretty vocally. But I think the new prince of Saudi Arabia is, when I look at, you have to look at actions and look at where they're going and what they're trying to do. I don't like Saudi Arabia. I don't like Wahhabism or Salafism, but I think he's trying to push reform. The same accusation can't be said as strongly as it can against Qatar.
So what does the average person need to know, first of all, about the Muslim Brotherhood? Then they can go down their own rabbit hole.
The Muslim Brotherhood have a plan. Their plan was leaked, I think, in 96. The Muslim Brotherhood Plan for America. Now, what it is, it's about getting into politics. It's about setting up NGOs. It's about setting up all these organisations. And all of these little groups, they might have 100 of them. They're all working for the same goal. They're all working individually with mass funding, billions coming into them from Qatar. They're all having all this money coming, but their job is to enforce Sharia and change and Islamise the United States of America, France, Britain, Europe. We're all asleep.
Is this what we would call political jihad?
It is political jihad. It's political jihad and it's Qatar funding it and it's an end goal and they've all got the same end goal. So you have to understand that our politicians for so long were intent on stopping ISIS, Al-Qaeda. Listen, they're going to blow shit up. Yeah? But all these other 100, 200, 300 active organisations, active charities, because most of them got charities commission, actively working in Great Britain, they have the same end goal. So it doesn't matter. I put a thing out yesterday. I don't care if they're not violent. They want to change this country, to take over this country. It's the same goal. And Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood are behind it all. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood are banned in many Arab states. They're banned. They're outlawed. But not here. Not here. In fact, here is their base. There's actually, I'll show you in my film, they've actually got their Muslim Brotherhood flags flying in London. They've got their headquarters and their offices. They've got offices. These are a terrorist organisation. They've got offices and they've got a base in our capital city, which they've been allowed to have for decades and decades, where they can sit, work and plan, strategise how they're going to take over Great Britain.
And watch.
Yeah, and see the success. And then see Sadiq Khan come up and I'd ask what influence they have over many of these politicians. Because they're now, I looked up something that was coming out of Texas now with the Muslim Brotherhood, where they're planning on how they can fund the politicians in America as well. So legally fund them. So setting up all these different groups that they can do it in our nations. But the Muslim Brotherhood are a massive problem, a massive, massive worldwide problem for the world, for peace in the world, but they do it very cleverly. They'd have a cell here and a cell in that town, and neither of them will know anything about each other. So they can't talk about each other. They don't even know they're both working for the Muslim Brotherhood, but they're both pushing the mission of the Muslim Brotherhood.
But does it come of no surprise that a lot of people have not heard of them until recently?
Yeah, but the public are getting on with their life, aren't they?
We're busy.
You're consumed in your own life. I wish I hadn't heard of them.
And what's the caste system within Islam? Because I'm also seeing different Muslims against each other recently.
Oh, you're seeing that the United Arab Emirates, and you're seeing that the Saudis and these countries, they have a very downward look upon the Pakistanis. There's a caste system. India's got the same going on, but they've got a caste system where I interviewed. He was an imam, wasn't he? What's his name? From Iran, and he said we wouldn't even let Sadiq Khan be a cleaner in our country. He's a Pakistani, and he just basically said that he's a Pakistani. How's he your mayor? And he started laughing. He wouldn't be a cleaner. That's a cleaner. They're cleaners.
Oh, I see.
They have this downward view.
Okay, so Arabs look down on Pakistanis.
Oh, totally, man.
Despite both being Muslim.
No, totally, yeah. So the Muslim Ummah, the Brotherhood, but then there's a caste system as well that's at play. The Arabs, and to be honest, most people say, would we have the problems we have with the Arabs, with the men from Dubai? Are they going to act like this? They're not.
I mean, it is one complex religion. Just when you think you've got it sussed out, something else gets thrown in the mix. You think, fuck, no, it's like constant sucker punching you or veering you in a different direction.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this. You can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real. It is stored safely. It is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.